Desperate to save her dying mother, Nigerian maid Vivian Johnson accepts a devil's bargain. Marry Seoul's most ruthless CEO in a contract arrangement where love is forbidden, but some rules are made to be broken. Don't forget to subscribe, like and drop a comment to support the channel, and make sure you stay till the end for the unexpected twist. The silk curtains billowed as Vivian Johnson sprinted down the hallway of the Yang estate, her heart hammering against her ribs. She clutched the silver tray against her chest, the coffee pot rattling with each hurried step. 3 minutes. She had exactly 3 minutes to deliver the morning espresso to Mr. Yang's private study before his video conference with Tokyo executives began. Move faster, she whispered to herself, her Nigerian accent thick with panic. This job was everything. The salary alone could cover 2 months of her mother's medical bills back in Lagos. She couldn't afford a single mistake. The marble floors gleamed beneath her worn sneakers as she rounded the corner. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Seoul stretched endlessly, a concrete jungle of glass and ambition. Her mother's life hung in the balance, tethered to numbers in a bank account that never seemed to grow fast enough. Vivian pushed through the study doors with her hip, relief flooding through her as she spotted the empty desk. Early. Thank God. She set the tray down on the mahogany surface and began arranging the cups with trembling fingers. The room smelled of leather and expensive cologne, a world so far removed from the cramped apartment in Itaewon she shared with 3 other immigrant workers. You're new. The voice cut through the silence like a blade. Vivian spun around, her elbow catching the edge of the tray. Time slowed as the coffee pot tipped, dark liquid arcing through the air in a perfect, terrible curve. It splashed across the front of a crisp white shirt. Vivian's breath caught in her throat as she looked up and up into the face of Jang Ji-ho himself. The CEO stood frozen, coffee dripping from his Armani shirt onto his perfectly tailored slacks. His face was carved from ice, all sharp angles and cold fury. Dark eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her knees weak. I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't hear you clearly. His voice was Arctic wind, each syllable precisely measured. He pulled the soaked fabric away from his chest, jaw clenched tight enough to crack diamonds. You've been here how long? 4 days, sir. Vivian grabbed napkins from the tray, her hands shaking. Please, let me. Don't. Ji-ho stepped back, raising one hand. You've done enough. The study doors burst open, and a woman in a sleek black suit rushed in, her eyes widening at the scene. Mr. Jang, the Tokyo executives are connecting in 2 minutes. I have your spare shirt in your bedroom. Cancel the call. Ji-ho's gaze never left Vivian. Reschedule for this afternoon. But sir, they've been waiting 3 weeks for this meeting. I said cancel it. He turned on his heel, coffee still dripping onto the imported Italian marble. You, he pointed at Vivian without looking back. Report to my office at 8 tonight. Don't be late. The door slammed behind him, leaving Vivian alone with the assistant, who looked at her with something between pity and contempt. You should start packing your things, the woman said softly. Mr. Jang doesn't give second chances. The rest of the day passed in a blur of anxiety. Vivian scrubbed floors she'd already cleaned twice, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Getting fired meant going home. Going home meant watching her mother die slowly in a hospital bed that smelled of bleach and broken dreams. At 7:30, her phone buzzed. Her younger sister's name flashed on the screen. Viv, Mama's asking for you. Vivian ducked into a storage closet, pressing the phone against her ear. How is she today? The doctors say. Her sister's voice cracked. They say we need to decide soon about the surgery. It's 200 million won, Viv. Where are we going to get that kind of money? 200 million won. The number had haunted Vivian for 3 months now, ever since her mother collapsed during Sunday service. Advanced cardiac surgery, they called it. Life-saving, they promised. Expensive, they warned. I'm working on it, Vivian whispered, though she had no idea how. Tell Mama I love her. Tell her I'm going to fix this. When she hung up, she had 15 minutes to report to Ji-ho's office. 15 minutes to face the man who held her future in his coffee-stained hands. The executive wing of the mansion was quiet at night. Vivian's footsteps echoed as she approached the double doors at the end of the hallway. She raised her hand to knock, but the door swung open before her knuckles made contact. Ji-ho stood in the doorway, now dressed in a fresh black shirt and slacks. He'd removed his tie, and the top button was undone, revealing a glimpse of collarbone. Somehow, this version of him seemed more dangerous than the coffee-soaked CEO from that morning. Come in. He stepped aside, gesturing to a chair opposite his desk. Sit. Vivian perched on the edge of the leather seat, her back straight, hands folded in her lap. Through the window behind Ji-ho's desk, Seoul glittered like scattered diamonds, beautiful and untouchable. He didn't sit. Instead, he paced to the bar cart in the corner and poured himself a whiskey, the amber liquid catching the light. Tell me about your mother. The question caught her off guard. Sir? Your mother. She's sick, correct? Ji-ho took a slow sip, watching her over the rim of the glass. Terminal heart condition. Needs surgery. Blood drained from Vivian's face. How do you? I make it my business to know. He set the glass down with a soft click. 200 million won for the procedure. You're sending every spare one back to Lagos, living on instant noodles, working yourself to exhaustion. He tilted his head. You're desperate. It wasn't a question. Vivian felt tears prick at her eyes but refused to let them fall. If you're going to fire me, just do it. Please don't make this harder than it has to be. Fire you? Something flickered across Ji-ho's face, too quick to identify. I'm going to offer you a proposition. Hope fluttered weakly in Vivian's chest. Another position? Sir, I'll take anything. Be my wife. The world tilted. Vivian gripped the armrests, certain she'd misheard. I'm sorry. What? Ji-ho moved behind his desk, pulling out a leather portfolio. He extracted a document and slid it across the polished surface toward her. A contract marriage. 6 months. You'll live in this house, appear at public events as my wife, and maintain the illusion of a happy marriage. In exchange, I'll pay for your mother's surgery in full and provide you with a monthly stipend of 20 million won. Vivian's hands trembled as she picked up the contract. The words blurred together. Marriage, compensation, duration, termination clauses. This is insane, she whispered. Why would you? Why me? You barely know me. I spilled coffee on you this morning. Ji-ho leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. I've been watching you, Miss Johnson. For 4 days, I've observed everything. The way you arrive 30 minutes early every shift. How you help the older staff carry heavy loads even when it's not your job. I heard you crying in the storage closet yesterday, begging your sister for more time. I've seen you give your lunch to the gardener's son when you thought no one was looking. He paused, his dark eyes boring into hers. You're kind, desperate, and smart enough to know when you're beaten. Most importantly, you're real. Real. Her voice came out as a whisper. My board of directors believes I need a wife to secure international investors for an upcoming merger. They think a family man appears more stable, more trustworthy. I need someone the media can't trace back to an agency or a casting call. Someone with genuine reasons to be here, who won't develop inconvenient feelings or expectations. His gaze didn't waver. Someone desperate enough to say yes, but principled enough to honor the agreement. So you want to use me? Yes. His honesty was brutal. And in return, I'll save your mother's life. You can call it exploitation if you want. I call it a mutually beneficial arrangement. Vivian stared at the contract, her mother's face swimming before her eyes. 200 million won. A surgery that could save her life. 6 months of pretending to be someone she wasn't. What if I refuse? Her voice came out barely above a whisper. Ji-ho stood, buttoning his jacket with mechanical precision. Then you walk out that door. Continue working yourself to death across 3 jobs, and pray your mother survives long enough for you to scrape together the money. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. How long did the doctors give her? 2 months. But Vivian didn't give him the satisfaction of an answer. You don't know me, she said, lifting her chin. What makes you think I won't fall in love with you? What makes you think I won't cause problems? Because you're too smart for that. Ji-ho moved toward the window, his reflection ghosting in the glass. You know exactly what this is. A transaction. You need money. I need credibility. When it's over, you'll take your compensation and build the life you came to Seoul to find. No complications. No feelings. He turned to face her. Can you do that, Miss Johnson? Can you pretend to love me in public and remain a stranger in private? Vivian thought of her mother's smile, the way she used to dance in the kitchen while cooking jollof rice, singing hymns. She thought of that smile fading in a hospital bed, replaced by pain and resignation. Yes, she whispered. I can do that. Ji-ho reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a checkbook. His pen moved across the paper in swift, decisive strokes. This is for your mother's surgery. The hospital will receive the funds by morning. The procedure can be scheduled immediately. He slid the check across the desk. Vivian stared at the number, her vision blurring with tears she could no longer hold back. 200 million won, her mother's life, reduced to ink on paper. There are rules, Ji-ho continued, his voice businesslike. No romantic entanglements with other people during the 6 months. No discussing the contract with anyone, including your family. In public, you'll act like a devoted wife, smile, laugh at my jokes, hold my hand. In private, we maintain professional boundaries, separate bedrooms, minimal interaction unless necessary for appearances. So I'm supposed to be your puppet. You're supposed to be my partner in a business arrangement. He picked up the contract and held it out to her. Everything you need to know is in here. Read it carefully. If you agree, sign it and leave it on the desk. Someone will collect it in the morning and show you to your new quarters. Vivian took the contract with shaking hands. And after 6 months? After 6 months, we'll stage a quiet divorce. Irreconcilable differences. The media will have moved on to the next scandal by then. You'll receive your final payment, another 100 million won, and we'll part ways. You can return to Nigeria, stay in Seoul, do whatever you want. You'll never have to see me again. The finality in his voice should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like a door slamming shut on, something she couldn't quite name. Mr. Yang, Vivian called out as he moved toward his bedroom door. He stopped, but didn't turn around. What if this isn't as simple as you think? What if something goes wrong? Nothing will go wrong, he said, his voice cold and certain. Because neither of us can afford for it to be complicated. This is business, Miss Johnson. Nothing more, nothing less. The door closed behind him with a soft click, leaving Vivian alone with the contract and a check that felt like both salvation and damnation. She read through the document slowly, each clause more clinical than the last. Duration of marriage, 6 months from date of legal ceremony. Public appearances, minimum twice weekly. Social media presence, coordinated through PR team. Termination clause, either party may end the agreement with 30 days' notice, forfeiting all remaining compensation. At the bottom of the final page was a line for her signature. Vivian picked up the pen, its weight surprising in her trembling fingers. She thought about calling her sister, asking for advice. But what would she say? That she was selling herself for their mother's life? She pressed the pen to paper and signed her name. Vivian Johnson. The letters looked foreign, like they belonged to someone else. Maybe they did. Maybe the woman who signed this contract wasn't the same person who'd arrived in Seoul 14 months ago with dreams of sending money home and eventually returning to open a small school. That night, Vivian barely slept in her tiny room in the staff quarters. She called her sister at dawn, her voice shaking as she explained that a miracle had happened, that a generous donor had agreed to cover Mama's surgery, that everything would be okay. A donor? Her sister asked suspiciously. Viv, what did you do? I prayed. Vivian lied, the words tasting like ash. And God answered. Don't question it. Just get Mama to the hospital. When she hung up, guilt sat heavy in her chest. But underneath the guilt was relief. And underneath the relief was something darker she didn't want to name. Tomorrow, her life would change forever. Tomorrow, she would become Mrs. Jang Ji-ho. She just had no idea how much that name would cost her. The next morning, 2 women in designer suits arrived at Vivian's door before sunrise. They introduced themselves as Ji-ho's personal stylists and informed her that she had 4 hours to transform from Maid to future Mrs. Jang. Mr. Jang has requested we begin immediately, the taller one said, her eyes sweeping over Vivian's worn pajamas with barely concealed distaste. The wedding is this afternoon. This afternoon? Vivian's heart lurched. I thought, he said, Mr. Jang doesn't believe in long engagements. The shorter stylist was already pulling clothes from Vivian's small closet, discarding each piece with a wrinkled nose. Pack only personal items. Everything else will be provided. The master wing was a different world. Vivian's new bedroom was larger than the entire apartment she'd shared with her roommates. A king-sized bed dominated the space, dressed in silk sheets that probably cost more than her yearly salary. French doors opened onto a private balcony overlooking Seoul, and an ensuite bathroom featured a soaking tub carved from black marble. Mr. Jang's room is through there, the taller stylist said, pointing to a door on the far wall. It connects through the sitting room. He's requested that you keep the door locked on your side unless absolutely necessary. Of course he had. Professional boundaries. The stylists worked with ruthless efficiency. They stripped away everything that marked Vivian as herself, rebuilding her into someone who could stand beside a man like Jang Ji-ho without causing whispers. Her braided hair was taken down and restyled into soft, elegant waves. Makeup was applied with precision, subtle enough to look natural, dramatic enough to photograph well. You're beautiful, the shorter stylist admitted grudgingly, stepping back to admire her work. The contrast will photograph beautifully. Mr. Jang chose well. The contrast, as if Vivian was a color palette, selected to complement Ji-ho's aesthetic. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. A young man in a suit entered, carrying a garment bag and a small velvet box. From Mr. Jang, he said, laying them carefully on the bed before disappearing as quickly as he'd arrived. Inside the garment bag was a wedding dress, not the elaborate white gown Vivian had imagined as a girl, but something elegant and understated. Cream silk that would photograph as white, with a fitted corset bodice and flowing skirt. It was beautiful in a way that made her throat tight. The velvet box contained a ring, a single diamond, flawless and cold, set in platinum. It caught the morning light and threw rainbows across the ceiling. It's stunning, the taller stylist breathed. That's easily 10 carats. 10 carats of obligation, 10 carats of pretend. By noon, Vivian stood before the mirror and barely recognized herself. The woman staring back was polished, sophisticated, belonging. But when she looked into her own eyes, she saw the same scared girl who'd arrived in Seoul with 2 suitcases and a heart full of hope. It's time, the shorter stylist announced, checking her watch. The car is waiting. The ride to the courthouse was silent. Ji-ho sat across from her in the back of the black Mercedes, his attention fixed on his phone. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than the surgery he was paying for, his hair perfectly styled, his expression unreadable. He didn't look at her once during the entire drive. The courthouse was cold and bureaucratic, nothing like the church weddings Vivian had attended back home. No flowers, no music, no family crying tears of joy. Just fluorescent lights and linoleum floors and a bored-looking official who'd clearly performed this ceremony hundreds of times before. "Do you, Jang Ji-ho, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do." His voice was flat, emotionless. "Do you, Vivian Johnson, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Vivian's mouth went dry. This was it. The moment she signed away 6 months of her life. The moment she became someone else. "I do," she whispered. "Then by the power vested in me by the Republic of Korea, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Ji-ho turned to her, his dark eyes finally meeting hers. For a moment, something flickered in their depths. Hesitation, maybe? Or regret? Then his face smoothed into a mask of polite indifference. He leaned in, his hand coming up to cup her cheek, and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was brief, chaste, utterly devoid of feeling, but Vivian's heart raced anyway, her skin tingling where his fingers touched her face. When he pulled back, she saw her own confusion reflected in his eyes before he looked away. "Congratulations," the official said, already reaching for the next couple's paperwork. "Next, please." They signed the marriage certificate in silence. Vivian's hand shook as she wrote her name next to Ji-ho's, making her signature look childish and uncertain next to his bold, confident strokes. "Mrs. Jang Ji-ho." The ink dried quickly, making it official. In the car, Ji-ho finally spoke. "There's a dinner tonight, business associates, some board members. They'll want to meet my wife." "Tonight?" Vivian's voice came out higher than intended. "We just got married. Which is exactly why we need to make an appearance." He was back on his phone, typing rapidly. "Show them this is real. The stylist left appropriate clothing in your closet. We leave at 7. Ji-ho." She stopped, the intimacy of his first name feeling wrong in her mouth. "Mr. Jang, I don't know how to act at these things. I've never—" "You smile. You stay close to me. You laugh when I laugh. You touch my arm occasionally, like you can't help yourself." He finally looked up from his phone, his gaze clinical. "Can you do that?" "I can try. Trying isn't good enough. Either you can do it, or we end this arrangement now." His voice was cold, all business. "I need perfection, Miss Johnson. That's what you agreed to." Anger flared hot in Vivian's chest. "It's Mrs. Jang now, isn't it? Or does the title only count when there are cameras around?" Something dangerous flashed in Ji-ho's eyes. He leaned forward, closing the distance between them, and for a moment Vivian thought he might actually show emotion. But he just smiled, cold and sharp. "Careful," he said softly. "Anger photographs poorly. We wouldn't want people to think our marriage is anything less than blissful." The rest of the ride passed in tense silence. Back at the mansion, Vivian retreated to her new bedroom and collapsed on the silk sheets, still wearing her wedding dress. Her phone buzzed with a message from her sister, a photo of their mother, smiling weakly from a hospital bed, a text that read, "Surgery scheduled for tomorrow. Thank you for the miracle." Vivian pressed the phone to her chest and let herself cry. Not tears of joy or sadness, but something more complicated. Relief mixed with regret. Gratitude twisted with grief for the life she'd just traded away. A soft knock interrupted her tears. She wiped her eyes quickly, expecting one of the stylists. Instead, Ji-ho stood in the doorway connecting their rooms, still wearing his wedding suit. "You're crying." It wasn't a question. "I'm fine." Vivian turned away, not wanting him to see her like this. What do you want? He was quiet for a long moment. Then she heard his footsteps crossing the room. He sat on the edge of the bed, keeping a careful distance between them. I know this isn't what you imagined, he said, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. When you were a little girl dreaming about your wedding day, it probably didn't look like this. No, Vivian admitted, her voice thick. It didn't. For what it's worth. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. Your mother will live. That's what matters. Everything else is just noise. Is that what you tell yourself? She turned to look at him, finding his expression unguarded for once. That the end justifies the means? Every single day. He stood, the moment of vulnerability passing. The car leaves at 7. Don't be late. He was almost to the door when Vivian called out. Ji-ho? She used his first name deliberately this time, watching for his reaction. He stiffened but didn't turn around. Thank you. For my mother. Whatever this is, whatever happens. Thank you. He nodded once, a sharp jerk of his head, then disappeared through the connecting door. Vivian heard the lock click on his side. At 7 o'clock sharp, Vivian descended the grand staircase in a midnight blue dress that hugged her curves and fell to her ankles in elegant waves. The stylist had outdone herself. Vivian looked like she belonged in Ji-ho's world even if she didn't feel like it. Ji-ho waited at the bottom of the stairs, devastating in a black suit. When he saw her, something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe appreciation, before his mask slid back into place. You look acceptable, he said, offering his arm. You look like you're attending a funeral, Vivian replied, taking his arm with more force than necessary. His lips twitched. Maybe I am. The restaurant was exclusive, the kind of place where reservations were made months in advance, and prices weren't listed on the menu. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Han River, and crystal chandeliers cast everything in a warm, golden glow. A private room had been reserved for Ji-ho's party. 8 people sat around an oval table, conversation dying the moment Ji-ho and Vivian entered. Gentlemen, allow me to introduce my wife. Ji-ho's hand settled on the small of Vivian's back, warm through the thin fabric of her dress. Vivian, these are members of JH Group's board of directors. The men rose, their eyes assessing Vivian with varying degrees of approval and skepticism. One man, older, with silver hair and cold eyes, stepped forward. So the rumors are true. You actually married her. He didn't offer his hand. I'm Chairman Park. I've known Ji-ho since he was a boy. This development is certainly unexpected. Life is full of surprises, Chairman Park, Vivian said, keeping her voice steady. I'm sure Ji-ho keeps you on your toes. A few chuckles rippled around the table. Chairman Park's eyes narrowed. Indeed. Tell me, Mrs. Jang, what is it you do? Before you became the lady of the house, I mean. The question was a trap, designed to embarrass her. Vivian felt Ji-ho tense beside her, ready to intervene, but she lifted her chin and met Chairman Park's gaze directly. I worked hard, Chairman Park. I cleaned homes, served coffee, did whatever was necessary to support my family. I'm not ashamed of honest work. She paused, letting her words settle. Though I imagine that's something you can't relate to, having been born into privilege. Silence descended like a guillotine. Then, unexpectedly, one of the younger board members burst out laughing. She's got fire, Ji-ho. I like her. Ji-ho's hand tightened on Vivian's back, a warning or support she couldn't tell. My wife speaks her mind. It's one of the things I admire most about her. The dinner continued with careful politeness, each course more elaborate than the last. Vivian picked at her food, hyper-aware of every move she made, every word she spoke. The board members watched her like hawks circling prey, waiting for her to make a mistake that would prove she didn't belong. So tell us, A woman with perfectly coiffed hair and cold eyes leaned forward. How did you and Ji-ho meet? The announcement was so sudden. No one even knew he was seeing anyone. Vivian felt Ji-ho's hand slide from her back to her shoulder, a gesture that would look affectionate to observers but felt like a leash. It was unexpected, Ji-ho said smoothly. I wasn't looking for love, but Vivian has a way of changing plans. Love? Chairman Park scoffed. Forgive me for being blunt, but this seems awfully convenient. A struggling immigrant worker suddenly becomes the wife of one of Korea's wealthiest CEOs? You can't blame us for being skeptical. I don't blame you for anything, Chairman Park. Vivian set down her fork, her pulse racing. You don't know me. You don't know my story or what I've been through. But I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm here because Ji-ho wanted me by his side tonight. Whether you approve or not is irrelevant. The table went silent. Vivian could feel Ji-ho's surprise radiating from him like heat. She'd gone off script, said too much, let her anger show. But she was tired of being treated like a circus animal performing tricks for an audience. Chairman Park's face reddened. Well, it seems your wife doesn't understand the importance of investor confidence, Ji-ho. Perhaps you should educate her on how business works. My wife, Ji-ho said, his voice dropping to a dangerous tone, understands perfectly, and she's right. Whether you approve of my personal choices is irrelevant. What matters is the merger, the numbers, the profit margins. My marriage doesn't affect JH Group's bottom line. Doesn't it? An older woman with pearls the size of marbles spoke up. The Takahashi Corporation specifically requested assurance of stability before moving forward. They're traditional, Ji-ho. They want to know you're settled, mature, capable of long-term commitment. A hasty marriage to a woman of questionable background sends the opposite message. Then perhaps, Vivian said quietly, surprising herself with her own boldness. The Takahashi Corporation should focus less on Ji-ho's personal life and more on the innovative technology JH Group is offering. Or are they so traditional they'd rather lose billions in potential profit than work with a married interracial couple? The younger board member who'd laughed earlier was grinning now. She makes a good point. Chairman Park pushed his chair back abruptly. This is exactly what I was afraid of. She's impulsive, inappropriate, completely unprepared for this world. Ji-ho, I'm requesting an emergency board meeting tomorrow morning. We need to discuss the implications of this union on the merger. There's nothing to discuss. Ji-ho stood, pulling Vivian up with him. My marriage is not up for debate. The merger moves forward as planned. If the Takahashi Corporation has concerns, I'll address them directly. Now, if you'll excuse us, my wife and I have had a long day. He guided Vivian out of the private room, his grip firm on her elbow. They didn't speak until they were in the car, the privacy screen raised between them and the driver. What the hell was that? Ji-ho's voice was ice and fury. You were supposed to smile and nod, not start a war with my board. They were treating me like garbage, Vivian shot back, her own anger finally breaking free. Like I'm some gold digger who trapped you. I'm sorry if I didn't play the grateful little wife convincingly enough. You weren't playing anything. You were being yourself, which is exactly what I told you not to do. He loosened his tie with sharp, frustrated movements. Do you have any idea what you've just done? Chairman Park has enough influence to delay the merger indefinitely. The Takahashi Corporation could pull out completely. Then maybe you should have married Senator Kim's daughter after all. Vivian crossed her arms, fighting back tears of frustration. Someone who knows how to sit quietly and look pretty while men insult her. Ji-ho's jaw clenched. This isn't about pride, Vivian. This is about a multi-billion-dollar deal that affects thousands of employees. People's livelihoods depend on this merger going through. And my mother's life depended on your money. I guess we're both prostituting ourselves for different reasons. The word hung between them like poison. Ji-ho's eyes flashed with something dangerous, and for a moment Vivian thought he might actually lose his carefully maintained control. Instead, he laughed. A harsh, bitter sound. At least you're honest about what this is. He turned to look out the window at Seoul's glittering skyline. That's more than most people in my world can say. The rest of the ride passed in loaded silence. When they arrived at the mansion, Ji-ho disappeared into his office without another word. Vivian climbed the stairs to her bedroom, exhaustion settling into her bones. She'd been Mrs. Jang Ji-ho for less than 12 hours, and already the cracks were showing. Her phone buzzed with a message from her sister. Mama's in surgery now. Doctors say it's going well. Praying for a miracle. The miracle was already bought and paid for. Vivian just hoped the price wouldn't destroy her in the process. She changed into pajamas and was braiding her hair when she heard movement in the sitting room, connecting her bedroom to Ji-ho's. The door she'd locked earlier clicked open, and Ji-ho appeared in the doorway, still in his dress shirt and slacks, tie discarded. "We need to talk." He didn't wait for permission, entering her bedroom and closing the door behind him. "I thought we were maintaining boundaries." "We are. But we also need to establish some ground rules before you sabotage everything I've worked for." He ran a hand through his hair, disrupting its perfect style. "I understand you're angry. I understand you feel out of place. But when we're in public, you cannot let your emotions control you." "You mean I can't be human?" Vivian said flatly. "Got it. I mean you need to think before you speak. Every word you say reflects on me, on my company, on this marriage we're pretending is real." He moved closer, and Vivian could see the exhaustion in his eyes. "Chairman Park is calling an emergency meeting tomorrow. He's going to push for an investigation into our marriage, try to prove it's fraudulent. If he succeeds, the merger fails and you forfeit your compensation." Fear trickled down Vivian's spine. Can he do that? He can try, which is why we need to be more convincing. No more arguments in public. No more contradicting me in front of board members. When we're out there, you're madly in love with me. Can you do that? Vivian wanted to refuse, to tell him she wasn't a puppet he could control. But her mother's face flashed through her mind. The surgery table, the doctors working to save her life with money Ji-ho had provided. "Yes," she whispered. "I can do that." "Good." But Ji-ho didn't leave. He stood there studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "You surprised me tonight. Most people in your position would have stayed silent, let Chairman Park belittle them without fighting back. Is that supposed to be a compliment? It's an observation." He moved to the window, looking out at the Seoul skyline. "You're not like the women in my world. You actually have a spine. Should I be flattered?" Ji-ho turned back to her, and something in his expression had shifted. "My parents had an arranged marriage, political alliance, business merger, all the usual reasons. My mother learned to smile and stay silent. She was perfect by everyone's standards." He paused. "She was also miserable. I watched her disappear into that role until there was nothing left of who she used to be." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I don't want that to happen to you." The admission seemed to surprise him as much as it surprised Vivian. "This arrangement has an expiration date. In 6 months you get your money and your freedom. Don't lose yourself before then." Before Vivian could respond, her phone rang. Her sister's name flashed on the screen. She answered with shaking hands. "Viv?" Her sister's voice was thick with tears. "Mama's out of surgery. The doctors say it went perfectly. They say she's going to be okay. She's going to live." Relief crashed over Vivian like a wave. She pressed her hand to her mouth, trying to hold back sobs. "Thank God. Thank God." "Who's the donor, Viv? Who gave us this miracle?" Vivian's eyes met Ji-ho's across the room. He was watching her with an unreadable expression, hands in his pockets, perfectly still. "Just someone who believed in second chances," Vivian managed. "Tell Mama I love her. Tell her I'll call tomorrow." When she hung up, tears were streaming down her face. Ji-ho crossed the room and handed her a tissue from the nightstand, his movements careful, almost gentle. Your mother is going to be fine, he said quietly. That's what matters. Is it? Vivian looked up at him. This man she'd married hours ago. This stranger who held her future in his calculating hands. What matters to you, Ji-ho? Really? Because I can't figure you out. 1 minute you're cold and distant, the next you're telling me not to lose myself. Which version is real? His jaw tightened. None of them. They're all masks I wear depending on what the situation requires. That sounds exhausting. It is. He moved toward the connecting door. Get some rest. Tomorrow we have a board meeting to survive. And Vivian? He paused in the doorway. What you did tonight, standing up to Chairman Park, that took courage. Stupid, reckless courage, but courage nonetheless. Is that your way of saying thank you? The corner of his mouth lifted in something that might have been a smile. Don't let it go to your head, Mrs. Jang. He left, closing the door softly behind him. But this time Vivian noticed he didn't lock it. She lay awake for hours, watching Seoul's lights flicker through her window, wondering what she'd gotten herself into. Her mother was alive. That was the important thing. That was everything. So why did her wedding ring feel so heavy on her finger? The next morning arrived too quickly. Vivian was awakened by the stylists at dawn, armed with more designer clothes and precise instructions. The board meeting was at 10. She needed to look perfect, the devoted wife supporting her husband through corporate politics. The navy suit they chose was severe, professional, with a skirt that hit just below the knee. They pulled her hair back in a sleek bun, makeup minimal but flawless. When Vivian looked in the mirror, she saw a stranger staring back. Polished, controlled, every inch the CEO's wife. Ji-ho was waiting in the foyer when she descended the stairs. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's cars, his expression all business. But when he saw her, something flickered in his eyes. You look good, he said, the compliment sounding reluctant. You sound surprised. Maybe I am. He opened the front door for her. Ready to face the wolves? Do I have a choice? There's always a choice, Vivian. You just might not like the alternatives. The JH Group headquarters was a glass and steel monument to Ji-ho's success. Employees bowed as they passed, whispers following in their wake. Vivian kept her head high, her hand on Ji-ho's arm, playing the role she'd signed up for. The boardroom was on the top floor, all floor-to-ceiling windows and expensive leather chairs. Chairman Park sat at the head of the table, flanked by the same board members from dinner. They watched Vivian enter with varying expressions of curiosity and hostility. Ji-ho, Mrs. Jang. Chairman Park's greeting was ice cold. Thank you for joining us. Let's get this over with, Ji-ho said, pulling out a chair for Vivian before taking his own seat. You called this meeting, Chairman Park. What are your concerns? What will Chairman Park reveal? Will their contract marriage survive the board's scrutiny? Like, subscribe, and comment below with your predictions. Part 2 drops soon, and trust us, you won't want to miss what happens next.